Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Let the record reflect the presence of the jury panel, the defendant, and counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're going to pick up where we left off. So, Ms. Jones, come on back up. Now, Mr. Reeves, you may continue.
Thank you. A little bit from where we were right before lunch. Let's back up to the point in time when you first met Bryan. He came over to the house with Nikki, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you speak up.
And when he first came into the house, he was introduced to you as Bryan.
There's Brad.
Okay. Do you remember telling the police anything different?
No, I don't.
Do you still have in front of you the transcript of the interview with you? Okay. Would you turn with me to page 28? At line 8. Did you say to the police, when she showed up, she didn't say, this is my, I'm guessing that blank word is supposed to be boyfriend, Bryan, or nothing like that. She just said, this is Bryan or Brad. I think she said Brad. And then you're asked, are you sure he didn't say Bryan? And then you said, I'm not sure. Is that correct?
Yes.
So really, you're not sure what name you were introduced to Bryan as, right?
No, I'm sure it was introduced as Brad.
Okay. And when you were talking to the police officer at the interview about this introduction, if you'll turn with me back to page 26, this is another instance in which you don't remember what name was said. If you would look with me at page 26, lines 9 through 11. We can go all the way down to line 17. Can you tell me, after reading those lines, whether you're clear that you said Brad or Bryan?
Are you talking about page 26?
Page 26, lines 9 through 17.
And what's the question, please?
Are you sure that you said his name was Brad or Bryan? And then read all the way down to through lines 19 through 21 also. From reading this, you're not sure what name you heard the police call Bryan, are you?
No.
The police might have called him Brad, the police might have called him Bryan, right?
The police asked him, what was it, Brad or Bryan?
And you don't know what he said.
Bryan said, you have my fucking ID. You know my name.
Okay. From what you read here, you don't know what he says, right?
Okay, why don't we just watch the video? Because I may not remember word for word of what I said, but I know what I saw.
Okay, all right. I know you're interested in watching the video, but I just want to talk to you about what we have transcribed from what you said. And from what was transcribed from what you said, it was confusing whether the police officer was saying Brad or Bryan and whether you knew it was Brad or Bryan, right?
So where is he? Sorry? So where is he? Where's the police officer that might have been confused?
Well, we can't have two of you testify at the same time. Okay. Now, at times when you were being questioned by the police officers at the police department, and at times when you were being questioned when you were at the scene by the two officers who originally came up, you told them a number of lies, right?
I don't know.
Okay. You remember that a police officer asked you if you had any drugs?
Objection, lack of foundation at the scene or at the station.
Overruled, he can ask the question.
Yes,
Okay. And you told him no.
correct.
But right underneath you, you had stuffed some drugs.
Not my drugs.
Drugs that you'd had in your hand, right? Yes? Drugs that you had smoked, right?
I don't know if I smoked those drugs, but that's what was handed to me.
A pipe that you had used, right?
A pipe and a bag of speed.
That you had used.
I'm not sure if it was that bag.
And the pipe had your fingerprints on it, you're aware, right?
Objection, hearsay, lack of foundation.
Sustained as the fingerprint question. Re-ask it.
Do you know whether your fingerprints were on that pipe?
They should have been.
All right. Because you stuffed it under the seat, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's back up a little bit. When you were at your apartment at Tootal's place the night before, you said that you smoked some drugs, right?
Yes.
And at that time, were you the only one smoking the drugs?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes. Yes.
Let me just find that. Hang on one second. Yeah, I'm going to find that just 1 second here. Well, since I don't see right here in my notes, I'm not going to sit here and keep looking for it. I'll come back to that question in a minute.
Objection, no question.
Overruled.
How long had you known Nikki?
Probably 10 years. About 10 years.
About 10 years? And had you known her because of your association with Tootal?
Yes, and his son.
Pardon?
And his son.
Now, we've asked about, you were asked about Nikki using drugs. And did she use drugs the night before with you?
Objection, relevance, the night before on the 17th.
On the 18th, did she use drugs with you?
That morning,
No, the night before.
we all smoked the night before.
Pardon?
We all had smoked.
Okay. And did you start out by lying to the police about whether or not you had smoked drugs the night before?
I don't remember.
Let's back way up. Let's back way up. How long have you been using meth up to this point in your life?
Maybe, I'm not sure, maybe 10 years.
If you said to someone in one of the interviews 20 years, would that possibly be correct?
No.
No? If you said you started using it at age 24, would that be right?
Meth?
Yes.
Using meth? No.
So if you said that, that was incorrect? All right. So to the best of your knowledge, you've only been using meth for 10 years.
Off and on.
How did you describe yourself to the police officers, your meth use?
Like a weekend warrior.
Now, as a weekend warrior, a weekend drug warrior, what does that mean to you?
You partied on the weekends and didn't party during the week.
And when?
And didn't party during the week.
Okay. But you did tell the officers that sometimes you did use it during the week.
I don't remember that.
And you did tell them that you didn't use it every weekend,
Yes.
right? You used it as frequently as you could get it,
No.
but you did use it on the weekends
Sometimes.
for 20 years,
No, not 20 years.
for 10 years.
Okay. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
And when the police officer asked you in your interview at the Glendale Police Department whether you had been using meth the night before, at first you told him you weren't, right?
I don't remember exactly what I did tell him.
And then you told him you might have.
I don't remember.
All right, well, let's look at transcript at page 38. And we'll start up at lines 4. And you were asked if you used in the past, and you said yes, right?
It's just an improper impeachment or improper refreshing recollection.
Overruled in the context of questions.
Thank you. And you said yes, correct?
That's what this says. I said yes.
And the main drug that you had used up to this point in your life was meth, right?
Yes.
And meth is also known as speed,
Correct.
right? Okay. And you were asked if you were speeding last night by the police officer, correct?
Correct.
And in that context, speeding means smoking meth.
Right. Correct.
And you said, no, I might have been, right?
That's what this says. Yes.
But you had been, right?
Yes, we smoked that night.
Okay. And when you were asked if you'd seen Bryan do any drugs, you said, I didn't see him use any. Right?
Actual Act Foundation, which time she mentioned twice.
Overruled.
I'm not sure that this is accurate.
Okay. Well, I'm not asking if this is accurate. I'm asking you if you had told the police that you had not seen Bryan doing drugs.
Well, if I told the police, then it'd be on the video, and we should be able to watch it.
Okay. So, now can you answer my question? Okay. So if you look at page 37, lines 20 through 22, you were asked, you didn't see him using any. And you said, no. And then you were asked, does Nikki use? And then you answered, they did go to my bathroom, but I didn't. I didn't actually see him doing anything.
No, that misstates what it says in the transcript, Your Honor. If you're going to ask the questions, you got to ask it accurately.
Hold on.
For which word I missed?
Read that you're reading line 1 from page 38, correct?
Correct.
All right.
I will read it again.
Yes.
They did go use my bathroom, but I didn't. I didn't actually see him do anything. Is that what you told the police?
I don't remember telling them
So it's possible you might have forgot some of the things that you told the police.
that. Yeah, that's why I keep saying I can't watch it.
All right. As a 10-year meth user, did you consider yourself at that point an addict?
No,
Why not?
because I put it down and walked away from it.
But you picked it up and used it again, right?
I guess.
Yes,
And you used it rather frequently,
sometimes.
and then sometimes you put it down, didn't use for a while,
Correct.
fell back into using it again.
Correct.
It caused you problems in your life, right?
Depends what you call problems.
Well,
Caused me this big problem.
you and Mr. Jones had fought about it.
You thought about it? I don't know where you're getting at.
Okay? And you want us to get into one of those questions that you want me to talk about for him?
At this point, if we're relating the motion, you can't get into that issue.
Okay, all right. Had Mr. Jones complained to you about your drug use?
No.
Did Mr. Jones use meth too?
Years ago.
Years ago. When is years ago?
Before this.
Okay. But what's years ago?
Well, I'm not exactly sure the last time he used.
Okay. When's the last time you remember him using?
I don't remember.
You do remember him using? Yes?
Yes.
And it had never been a source of argument between the two of you?
Not that I recall, no.
And the two of you had children together, right? And at the time of this incident, you had a 10-year-old.
My son.
So the entire life of that child, you've been using meth.
Maybe, yeah, off and on, probably.
Pardon?
Probably off and on, yeah.
And during the entire life of your younger child, you've been using meth.
No.
Your younger child was 5, right? So during the course of that child's 5 years, that was during the time that you were using meth.
I'm getting kind of confused, but
Pardon?
I'm confused, but
Okay, let me back up. I'm not trying to trick you. When this incident happened, you said you'd been using meth for 10 years, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And your oldest at that time was 10,
yes.
so you had been using meth the entire life of that child. Yes?
Off and on, yes.
Okay. And so that would also apply
Yes.
to the younger child.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about meth. What does meth do to you?
Gives me energy.
Gave you energy. What else?
It was a painkiller.
I'm sorry?
It was a big painkiller.
Okay. So it's a painkiller. It gives you energy? Describe the energy it gives you.
Just having more energy to get up and do things.
Okay. You move faster?
Probably.
Get more things done?
You think so, yeah.
Pardon?
You think so, yes.
You think you're getting more things done. Now, sometimes when you use a meth, even though you think you're getting things done, you're really just spinning your wheels, right?
I imagine, yes.
I mean, sometimes meth users actually think they're doing things, and they're not, right?
No, I usually know if I'm doing something.
Okay. Have you ever caught yourself when you're doing meth, sitting, thinking about doing something, and then find that you've been sitting there thinking about it for a long time?
No.
So that wasn't for you? That was your symptom?
No.
Okay, all right. You said that it gave you energy, and so you would move around and get things done, or think you're getting things done faster. When you think you're getting things done faster, but you're really not getting things done faster, what did you mean by that?
Sometimes you're not getting them things done.
But you're trying to get them done?
Usually, that's the...
But because of the drugs, you're really not getting them done.
Right, but that's not everybody all the time does that, you know?
But that's you, sometimes.
No.
Pardon?
No, that's, yeah, sometimes.
Yes, right. We're just talking about sometimes. All right. When you use meth, do you stay awake for a long time?
Yes.
How long can you stay awake when you're doing meth?
I never stayed up like other people.
Pardon?
I never stayed up like other people.
Okay. Well, as long as you stayed up using meth.
Just overnight.
Just overnight. Okay. On February 18th, you started using meth in the evening, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you only slept 1 or 2 hours all night.
I laid down, but I didn't sleep.
I'm sorry, I just have...
Laid down, but I didn't sleep.
Okay. And then you used again in the morning, right? Okay. So when you took that first hit that night, what did you feel?
Just what I explained. Just some energy.
Speak up a little bit.
Just some energy.
Okay, you had some more energy. So is that why you stayed up most of the night?
No, I was helping pack John Johnson.
So I thought they were done packing and tried to load the car before Nikki and Bryan left.
And took everything out of the car and put things back in the car.
But all that was done...
Hauled it up to the neighbors.
Okay. But wasn't all that done before they took off?
Yes.
And they took off about midnight?
I'm not sure of the time, but it was late.
You sometimes have a hard time keeping track of time, right?
Sometimes, yes.
I mean, I noticed that you mentioned that several times in the interviews, right?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry. It's just everything you say is being taken down, and when you shake your head, I know what you're saying, but it's not being taken down. Okay. So we've got two things that you feel when you're using meth. You feel increased energy, and you're awake. What else do you feel when you use meth?
It's a good painkiller.
Oh, it's a good painkiller. All right. Now, at this time in your life, you were going through a horrible situation, right? Physically.
Correct.
You were on chemotherapy,
Correct.
and we all know why people are on chemotherapy. You were on for the obvious reasons, right?
Correct.
And it caused you to lose your head,
Yes.
and you're feeling terrible pain because of that, I imagine. When had you had your last chemotherapy treatment in relationship to this incident?
I'm not sure.
When did you regularly have your chemotherapy treatments?
I had like 2 in a row, and then they'd skip a week, and then I'd have 2, and then I'd had surgery.
Where in relationship to that process were you on February 19th, 2007?
Before the surgery.
Okay, it was before the surgery. So before the surgery, for how many months were you getting chemo?
Just a couple.
And when was the surgery?
I don't remember. I think it was October, but I'm not sure.
Well, October would have been 4 months in the past or 6 months in the future.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Are you thinking you might have been on chemo for 6 months?
No?
No, thank you.
But you're sure you were on chemo at about the time of this incident?
Yes.
And when you're taking chemo, you're got all sorts of horrible side effects. Makes you nauseous, right?
Yeah.
And it makes your hair fall out. It makes your bones hurt, right?
Throw up.
And so you are using meth as a painkiller.
And yes,
But you also had a prescription for painkillers.
correct.
What kind of painkillers were you taking regularly?
I'm not sure if it was Vicodin or Percocet at the time.
Okay, but they were by prescription, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they were classified a narcotic, right? Okay. So you were taking the painkillers and you're doing meth to help you overcome the pain. When you take meth, is one of your symptoms a decreased appetite?
Well, maybe a little, but not much. Look at me. I've always been a fat kid.
I wouldn't say you're a fat kid. So at this time, and looking at your picture, the picture that you were there, you didn't look like you were overweight. You weren't overweight at that time, right?
I'm not sure what my weight was there.
But you weren't over. You weren't heavy, right?
Maybe a little.
All right. Let's make sure you speak up so everybody can hear you. I know it's tough, but I'm going to keep reminding you to project. Some people can project. Like you hear how loud I am now, I always project even when I don't want to. You're opposite, and you need to fight that by projecting because people are having trouble hearing you. So please speak up, and I'm going to keep reminding you when you're not.
Okay.
All right, where's the on button? I forgot. There it goes. And I realize nobody really likes to look at themselves, pictures of themselves. But here, you wouldn't describe yourself as being overweight, would you?
Yeah.
A little bit. Okay, all right. Some people, when they use meth, their heart speeds up. Does yours?
I don't know for sure.
Pardon?
I don't know for sure.
Not something you feel?
No.
You do feel that increased energy, right?
Yes.
Kind of want to get up and get going? Mm-hmm. Yes? And it kind of gives you a buzz?
Just the energy.
Pardon?
Just the energy.
Just energy? How do you feel? Tell me how that energy feels. Just saying, I got energy. What does that mean to you?
You have the energy to get up and do something, to do things.
Does it make you feel hot?
Maybe at times.
Does your pulse rate go up?
I don't know for sure.
Do you get irritable when you use meth?
No?
You already said that you don't suffer from a lot of insomnia when you're using meth, right?
Right?
Do you get confused when you're using meth?
I don't know. I'm a little confused now, and I haven't used it in 7 years.
Well, I understand that this is a stressful situation, but when you're using meth, do you notice that you seem to be a little more confused than at other times?
Probably, yes.
And if we were to look in the transcript transcript, we'd probably find some times in which it looks like you're confused, right?
I mean, it looked that way.
Yeah. I mean, you had taken a hit of meth, you said, just before you guys took off from Mason, right?
Yes.
And so and that was at like 6 in the morning or so, right?
Yes.
And so, were you coming down off the meth high by 7 o'clock at night?
By 7 o'clock at night?
Yeah, well, your interview was at somewhere between 5 and 7 at night, right?
Yeah, about 12 hours after.
Okay, so were you coming down off the meth then?
No, I wasn't even feeling no meth at all at that point.
How long does it normally take you to come down from a meth high?
I guess it depends on how much you do.
So, how much meth does it take to get a high?
That was different too.
The night before, on February 18th, you took a hit of the meth pipe, right?
Right?
And you stayed up most of that night, right?
Right?
So you were feeling a little bit of the effects of the meth, right?
Right?
And then you used it again in the morning,
Right?
and so you felt the effects of that, right? Okay. So by the time you were interviewed that night, were you still feeling the effects of the meth, or were you coming down off of it?
No, I was not feeling anything from it.
Okay. Have you known a lot of meth users?
I don't know about a lot, but yeah,
Okay. More than 3?
probably.
More than 5?
I don't think so.
So you knew Nikki, right?
Yeah.
You knew Too Tall, right?
Yes.
At the time this incident, you had a boyfriend named Mark.
Yes.
He was a meth user.
No.
Your brother was a meth user.
No.
Who in the house where your brother was living used meth?
Not sure.
You may. Without showing this to the jury, so just kind of keep it to yourself, can you identify what is in this picture?
It looks like a pill bottle. Some kind of pipe.
Pardon?
Some kind of pipe.
Well, the question was simply, can you identify?
Right.
And a lighter and key.
Okay, I'm not asking you what do you see, I'm just asking you if you recognize that stuff in that photograph.
I recognize what it is, but I don't recognize it like as being any persons, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Do you recognize that as coming from your brother's house?
No?
Is that your pill bottle in that picture?
I don't know.
Okay. So if a police officer later identifies things from that photograph as coming from your brother's house, would that be an error?
Objection, vouching, and hearsay.
Sustained.
Is it possible that your brother was using meth?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Pardon?
No, I don't believe so.
Who else was living at that house, that apartment?
His girlfriend, Mark, and some other guy that slept on the couch sometimes.
And your kids were there.
That day.
Where did your kids sleep that night?
I don't know because I wasn't there.
You didn't ask anybody?
Not at that point.
Now, the guy that was living there named Mark was your boyfriend, right?
Correct.
And even though you're living with Bill, you got a boyfriend named Mark. Yes?
Bill and I are separated. I've been for a while.
But yet while you're living with Bill, Mark, your boyfriend, is living with your brother at the house in Glendale.
Correct.
And you're not aware whether anybody at that house was using drugs.
Correct.
What was the feeling that you would get when you'd use meth and a painkiller at the same time? Percocet or Vicodin?
I don't remember too much of a difference.
You don't remember too much of a difference?
Yeah. Perfect.
Were you using your painkillers on a regular basis right before this incident happened on February 19th?
Pretty regular, yeah.
Do you know if you used any that night?
I don't remember.
Do you know if you used any that morning?
I don't think so.
Now, you told us that you didn't think you were a meth addict, but you'd used it for a long time, right?
Correct.
Were you addicted to the painkillers at this point?
No.
Okay. But yet you were using them both at the same time.
Correct.
Have you ever looked into the effects of meth on a person's body?
Not really.
Are you generally aware of the effects of meth on a person's body?
Somewhat.
Are you aware that they can make your teeth fall out?
Well, yeah.
Did it make your teeth fall out?
No.
Are you aware that it can have, that it can literally eat the large bones in your body?
I believe it.
Do you suffer from the effects of meth in the joints of your body?
No.
Going back to the scene, when you peeked your head up and you saw Officer Goyder running around, what's the word you used to describe how he looked?
Panic, but he wasn't running around. He was running across the street.
And you described him several times as being panicked, right?
Yes.
Did you see Officer Goyder take off running when he saw Bryan's gun?
No, not right when he seen it.
Pardon?
Not right when he seen it.
Well, did you see him run past Officer Hawley?
No, I didn't see him.
I couldn't hear you.
No, I did not see him.
Did you see him around the back of the Kia?
No.
Did you see him around the two police cars?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah, he was running in an angle to get across the street by a white car, behind a white car.
Okay. I'm talking about when he first took off running. When he first took off running, he runs around behind the Kia.
Objection, mistake to testimony. She didn't see him running.
Overruled. Restate the question.
When he takes off running, do you know that he runs around the back of the Kia?
Officer? The officer?
Officer Goyder.
No.
You don't see where he goes.
No.
And you don't see where he ends up then, right?
No, he ended up across the street behind the car.
At some point, you lifted your head up, but that was after all the firing stopped, right?
No.
So you lifted your head up at some point while the firing is still going on.
Yes.
And you look out and you see Bryan running around the corner.
I see Bryan fire once, then I'm down in the back seat. I see him go by the windows. Then I hear another shot, and then when I lifted up, Bryan was running down the grassy part and fired a shot like this over at Officer Gordia. Then he started returning fire.
Okay. So at that point, you say Officer Gordia returned fire.
Yes,
And at that point, now Bryan has shot 4 shots.
3 for sure.
And I thought you said a minute ago, this morning, that you saw him fire 4 shots.
I saw him fire 3 shots.
Oh, okay.
Saw him fire, I heard him fire, I saw him fire.
And I thought that you said that you saw him fire a 4th shot.
No, I thought I heard a 4th shot around the corner.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you know what shot spotter is?
Kind of.
What do you think it is?
Objection, relevance.
I'll let her answer that question, but there's not much left.
I get it.
Supposed to be where somebody shoots a gun, and it pinpoints it, or lets the police know where it's at, or something.
Because it hears the shots, right? Yes?
Yes.
Do you know how many shot spotter says were fired this day?
No.
Would it surprise you that shot spotter...
Objection, hearsay, relevance.
At this point.
Do you know how many total shots shot spotter says were fired?
Objection, asked and answered. She doesn't know.
I have no idea.
He can ask the question, just that single question. We need to not get into details of shots fired. You can ask that question. You know what the question is?
How many shots were fired that day?
Right.
I have no idea.
Okay. You said Bryan fired 3 shots.
Yes.
How many shots did Officer Goydia fire?
I do not know for sure.
So you know exactly how many Bryan fired, but you don't know how many Officer Goydia fired.
Because Bryan was the only one firing at that before.
Okay.
And there was a bunch of shots that Officer Gordia fired.
I can't hear what you said.
A bunch of shots that Officer Gordia fired.
A bunch of shots. Okay. All right. Are you aware that Mark told the police that...
Objection, hearsay, as to what Mark said. And relevance.
That's going to be sustained based on what it sounds like the question's going to be on hearsay.
Were you away from the house for 3 days prior to this incident?
I don't remember.
You don't remember how long you've been away from Mark at that point?
No, Mark and I were on and off. Lots of
You and Mark were living together some of the time,
on and off.
and some of the time you're living with Bill.
No, Bill and I lived together because of the cancer and because I was sick. I stayed with Bill, but we were still separated. He just let me and the kids stay there.
Okay. After the incident was over, you got out of the car. Did you walk around the front of the car?
Right then, or just as soon as I got
When you
out?
got out, did you walk around the front of the car?
No,
Walked around the back of the car?
I started to walk around the back of the car.
Okay. And at that point, you saw the fallen officer,
I heard him.
and when you looked up, you heard Officer Goyde yelling at you.
Correct.
Get away from him, get away from him. And he was pointing his gun at you, right?
Yes?
And you thought you were going to get shot, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes?
And you told him, don't shoot me.
Correct?
And he had a wild look in his eyes, right?
Pretty wide-eyed.
And you identified him at that point as panicking, so it panicked you.
Correct?
You were afraid he was going to shoot you.
Possibly, yes.
And you offered to help, right?
Yes, but not a...
In fact, you told Officer Boyd, don't treat him like that.
Because I knew he was already gone, and he was trying to drag him across the street.
He dragged him across the street. And you followed him, right?
Kind of walk him in the middle of the street.
You said, don't treat him like that.
I said, don't do that to him. Don't drag him like that.
And then you kind of gave him, I guess what best could be described as a little blessing, and you left.
Yeah,
Right.
I walked up the alley.
You said something about God be with you, and you left. Right?
Go with God.
Go with God, okay. And then you just left the scene, right? And you went back to your house, right?
Yes.
And you went into the house.
No, I walked up the alley.
Okay, well, okay. You walked up the alley.
You're talking over. Let her finish your answer.
The gate was locked. I walked around the other side of the building, and I beat on the front door.
Front door was open.
But Mark came down and opened the front door.
Oh, okay. So Mark, your boyfriend, opened the front door and let you in.
Correct?
And you ran upstairs and changed your clothes.
Wrong. I didn't go upstairs at all.
Did you change your clothes?
Did not.
Never changed your clothes.
Did not.
In February of 2007, were you in the business of working with tampered license plates?
No.
Was anybody in that house in the business of working with tampered license plates?
I don't know.
Your brother? Yes?
Yes.
Did your brother tamper with license plates?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
I don't know. I never saw him, no.
Did Mark tamper with license plates?
I never saw him either.
Now, you said this morning that Officer Hawley reached into, or came to the window and was going to get the license plate, but the temporary license plate out of the car. At least the Officer Hawley just reached right in and took it out of the window, right?
I don't remember.
Okay. Turn to page 23 of your interview. And would you please read lines 9 through 10?
You wanted her to read it to herself, right?
Yes.
Let him know when you finish reading.
Okay.
All right. You told the police officers conducting your interview that Officer Hawley reached in and took the tag, took the paper temporary plate out of the back window, right?
But I'm not sure if that's how I said it exactly.
All right, well, let me read what you said exactly. And the second cop, he said, yeah, he just reached in the window and he pulled it off, right?
No, he tried to pull it out.
It says, and he pulled it off, right?
That's what it says.
And he goes and he's standing right there and in between the two doors and the window's down and he goes, do you see anything wrong with this? right?
Right?
So which is it? Did he pull the tag off, or did you pull it off? All right.
And asked me to do it, if I could reach it.
And you recognized it immediately as a fictitious plate?
As soon as he held it up,
You recognized it as fictitious, right?
yes.
Okay. Did you suspect that Nikki was in the business of creating fictitious plates?
Somebody was. There's somebody put it on there.
Did you know if Nikki was in the business of creating fictitious plates?
I don't know what Nikki's up to, ever.
Do you know who Nikki wanted to have possession of her car when she was arrested?
No, I didn't.
Is there any reason Nikki would have wanted you to have possession of her car?
I have no idea.
I can just have a minute, Your Honor.
You may.
I just have a second.
May.
I need to go in. So there was a lot of confusion at the scene when shots started being fired, right?
Yes?
You're peeking your head up, you're putting your head down. You're peeking your head up, you're putting your head down, right?
Yes?
Did you see where any of the shots that Officer Gordy was firing landed?
The one when Bryan got shot in the leg.
Okay. You saw Bryan take a somersault. Did you see the shots that hit in the ground before that Officer Gordy was firing?
No.
Did you see the shots that Officer Gordy was firing that hit the car down the street? Did you see the shots that Officer Gordy was firing that hit the trailers 3 and 4 blocks away?
No.
Did you see the shots that Officer Gordy fired that ricocheted off the house down the street?
No.
Did you see the shot that Officer Gordy fired that hit the side of the house? It was right there by where Bryan was running.
No.
Did you hear it hit the side of the house?
No, I just heard lots of shots being fired.
When Officer Gordy was pointing the gun at you, and you recognized he was in a panic, what did you do physically to get him to slow down?
I just put my hands up and told him, don't shoot me.
Up high, down low?
Like, here.
Don't shoot me, don't shoot me. And your hands are up. I'm describing it because it's got you on the record, because we don't see what you're doing when you're sitting.
Yes.
Okay. So your hands are up and you're telling him, don't shoot me.
Correct.
And were you walking towards him?
Yes.
And when you left, did he say, don't leave?
No.
He just let you walk off.
Yes. I told him that I was going to my brother's 4 doors down when we first got pulled over.
Wouldn't surprise you if he didn't hear that, would it?
No, I think he heard it.
Okay. He acknowledged it? He said, okay, go?
No. He didn't say, okay, go. He said, nobody's going nowhere.
He wasn't paying attention to you, right?
He said, nobody's going nowhere. I have a traffic investigation on.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Redirect, Mr. Martinez.
Ma'am, one of the things that you were asked about were the effects of methamphetamine and whether or not they cause teeth to fall out. Do you remember being asked that question? And you said that's not an effect for you, right?
Right?
Well, I can tell just by looking at you from right here that you have some teeth missing. Why are they missing? Tell us about that.
Objection, relevance, beyond the scope.
Overruled. No, overruled.
I had a tumor in my face right here, and so they went in through the roof of my mouth and they removed 11 teeth to get it out.
How many teeth did they remove?
11.
Those are the teeth that are missing?
They're all missing now.
When you say they're all missing, what does that mean?
I have a plate now.
And who put the plate? Was it as a result of this medical procedure or why?
Yes, because I didn't have any teeth.
You were asked about whether or not methamphetamine was what you used it for, and you said, well, it helped you speed up or whatever the term. And you also said it helps kill the pain or something like that. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
Were you experiencing any pain back then when this happened around February 19th or 18th of 2007?
Yes.
Tell me what pain you were experiencing.
I was having a lot of pain in my abdomen and my side. I was pretty much hemorrhaging off and on, where I would just bleed.
Pardon? I didn't understand that.
I would hemorrhage. I would just bleed and bleed and bleed. And
Would that be painful? I'm asking you about pain.
yes,
You were asked about your surgery and what it was, and you said, well, I don't remember the date. Do you remember being asked about that?
the date, yes.
What kind of, do you remember the surgery?
Yes.
What kind of surgery did you have?
A complete hysterectomy
And what was the purpose of it?
because I had uteral cancer.
Had it spread?
Yes, spots on my liver, and now it's back.
You were asked about a deposition, and you were asked about the state being there. And my question to you is, at that deposition, was Brad or Bryan there?
Yes,
Was also two lawyers present for Brad and Bryan?
yes,
Did they ask you questions at that deposition for the state?
yes, they did.
And did Mr. Martinez, the prosecutor, also ask you questions?
Yes, you did.
And at that deposition, were you asked about what happened back on February 19th of 2007? Were you asked about that?
Yes,
And you answered everybody's questions, didn't you?
yes, I did.
Then you were asked over and over about this issue involving whether or not you said something or you didn't say something back on February 19th of 2007, sometime in the afternoon. Are you a tape recorder?
No, I am
Do
not.
you remember words that you said back on February 19th of 2007?
No, I do not.
But do you remember what you saw back on February of 2007?
Yes, I do.
And the words that you may have used back in February 2007, do you remember, for example, what you said first or what you said second?
No, I do not.
And you kept saying, there's a videotape, right?
Yes,
During this interview, do you remember whether or not you were crying or not?
yes, I was crying.
And during this interview, did you answer all of the police officers' questions?
Yes, I did.
For example, you were asked about a transcript. Do you know who prepared this transcript?
No, I do not.
Pardon?
I do not.
And for example, you were asked specifically, just to pick a page, page 23, lines 9 through 10. Do you remember being asked about those?
Yes.
Well, look down on that same page, on line 17. Do you see that? Read it to yourself. When you're done reading, tell me.
Yes.
Are you done reading it?
Yes.
My question to you is, what does inaudible mean?
It means you couldn't hear it.
And that's what's written there, right?
Yes.
And that's on page 23, and you were asked about lines 9 through 10, right?
Yes.
And right underneath it is that word, isn't it?
Yes. And that's why I wanted to...
There's no question before you, man. You were asked about page 26. Take a look at page 26. And you were asked about lines 9 through 17. Do you remember being asked about that? Just take a look at that.
Yes.
And take a look at lines 9 through 17. At line 10, and you were asked about Brad or Bryan. That had to do with the Brad or Bryan issue, right?
Yes.
What do you see there on line 10? Do you see an inaudible there?
Yes, I do.
What does that mean? Do you know what you said at that point?
It means they couldn't hear what I said.
And the same thing when you go down to line 16 and 17 of that same quote, talking about this.
Yes.
Talks about it being inaudible, right?
Yes, it does.
And you know, you did indicate there is a videotape of this, right?
Yes.
When you spoke to Detective Hawkins, did you and he talk about, or who was the individual that you talked to?
Detective Hawkins.
And when you spoke to Detective Hawkins that day, did you tell him about the shooting?
Yes.
And what did you tell him as to who shot first?
Bryan shot first.
And what did you tell him the circumstances were about the shooting by Bryan? Explain to me or tell me what you told Detective Hawkins back then. Tell me the story.
I don't object to which question he's asking. He asked two. Did you tell Detective Hawkins this, or what story did you tell him?
Well, the question, I think, was, tell me what you told the detective. And that's the question that's pending.
About the shooting, what did you tell him?
That guy got out of the car and killed the other officer.
Guy, what? Just don't rush through it. Tell me what you told him.
The whole thing?
I know the whole thing. Tell me what the whole thing is.
That's the whole thing.
Pardon?
From when we got pulled over,
Yes, tell me what you told him back then.
I told
You
him.
don't need to look at the transcript. I'm asking from your memory. You say you don't remember the words, right?
Right?
I'm asking you from your memory what it was that you told him that you saw. Not what you told him, but what you saw, what you told him you saw.
I told him that I saw Bryan get out and pull his gun out from way down deep in his pant leg and pulled the gun out and he pointed it at both officers. And one of them was saying, hold up, hold up. I didn't see which one, and so I was down in the back seat with on top of the dog, and
Hold on for a second. not asking you to read, shut that for me. Now you can answer the question.
And I was on top of the dog and was looking up like this, and I could see out both the side windows, and Bryan pulled out the gun like this, and then turned it sideways, and they said, hold up, and he started walking towards him, and he shot the first shot, and I put my face down and glanced back up at him, and he glanced in at me, and I didn't see the second shot, but I heard the second shot right away. And then I could hear something, I'm not sure it was gurgling or wheezing sound, and I looked up, and Bryan then was running down the grassy part, and he put the gun across and fired off a shot at the officer by the car. I decided then I was getting out of the car, and I got out of the car, but I didn't want the other officer to shoot me. And so I put my hands up and I told him, don't shoot me. And I started to step around the back of the car to walk towards him. And then I realized that the gurgling and wheezy sound that I heard was Officer Hawley. He was face down behind the car. And his body was raising up, and then it would kind of go back down, and then it would raise up, and his head kind of turned, and he looked at me, and a bunch of blood came out of his neck and his face, and then he kind of collapsed down, and I walked out away from him around the front of the car and came down the middle of the street and was telling the first officer, please don't shoot me. And I said, don't fucking shoot me. And I said, this man is dying, and you gotta let me try to help him. And when I got to him, he raised up pretty much for the last time, and a lot of blood came out, and he spit a couple teeth out. And at that point, the other officer was still putting his gun on me and then holding his gun down the street at that point. And he said, I just said, go with God. And I knew I couldn't do anything. And I walked back to the middle of the street and was just standing there for a second, and then I just told myself I was going to go see my kids.
With regard to the issue of the first officer, as you call him, taking the body across the street, did you tell that to the officer that interviewed you that day?
I'm not sure, I believe so.
And did you tell the officer something about the way he was treating Officer Holly?
Objection, she just said she didn't know if she said anything.
Yes, I did.
Hold on.